Wow, this is pretty amazing. Look at all the lenses. There's 1, 2, 3 cameras looking at you. If you come around and an Impreza's in town, you will be seen. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, there's only one way to find out, and that's to take this lovely 2024 Impreza out for a RS ride. Brand new bits on this car for 2024, and we're going to play with all of them. Fall on my butt. It's winter time. We got a white winter car here in a winter setting, and man, I tell you, it is slick where I'm walking. But you know, if I fall, well, I got a gimbal. It won't be that dramatic. But welcome friends to our 2024 Impreza RS. Now the RS, like all the Impreza line, has got some tweaks. And here's an important one that the whole Impreza line has for this year, and that is the chassis itself, the unibody, is 10% stiffer than it was before. And as usually always the case, you know, you make them stiffer and stiffer and stiffer, these chassis, especially if you're a pickup truck and you have a frame. But here we have the wedge shape that we're so familiar with the Impreza, and also there's some cross trek involved with this. 105-inch wheelbase, and I say crossy. The crossy, it's like a more off-roady version of this car. As you may notice, which I found very surprising initially, is that I'm used to all Subarus having, in addition to their standard symmetrical all-wheel drive, which every Subaru has, they all have a fairly decent amount of ground clearance, but the Impreza is pretty low to the ground. And you'll discover that if you try to drive it like you're driving, like, say, a Outback Wilderness or something like that. You're not going to have that ground clearance you have with that vehicle. But this is a much more, I would say, street-savvy version of what is a really great all-around little car. It actually has very good room in it for its size. And it also has a very nice, normal, non-turbocharged boxer engine, which is, of course, another Subaru mainstay, and no turbocharging on this one. 182 horsepower out of a 2.5 liter. There's also a 2 liter available in other Imprezas, but the RS gets a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder. And horsepower, yeah? Huh? You guys approve of that terminology? Yep, I think so. But it also has a very wide, look at how wide the stance is for how small the car is. And that's the wheel at every corner architecture we always refer to, especially with something like a Mini. But this car has it also, and it's great. It makes for a very, very stable ride, and something that Subaru, I'm going to be harping on this over and over again during this review. But Subaru's done such a great job with their suspension tuning, because these cars not only handle really well and are very, very stable, they ride well. I mean, the suspension compliance is quite good, especially considering this is a, yes? You were saying? Don't let me interrupt you. The suspension compliance is outstanding for this class of vehicle, because this is pretty much an entry-level Subaru. This particular is the top of the line of the entry level, but it's still quite affordable in this day and age anyway. And it's got a lot of nice features on it, like them wheels are beautiful. And got your logo. You like your RS logo right here? Let's have a look. Yeah, yes. Rally Sport. That's probably what that's what RS used to mean. Of course, any manufacturer can call anything they want. So This particular car is an RS because it's more sport oriented. I initially thought, because as I mentioned, it has not a whole lot of ground clearance. Can you see that kitty up there? That kitty is the ultimate barn cat right there. I thought initially it might be lowered slightly for better road handling, but it's not. That's the standard ride height, 5.1 inches of all the Impreza line. But this does have a little bit fatter rubber on it for better handling. And all in all, is a real familiar looking car that's got a lot of little tweaks on it. It's one of these great models that if you were fond of the car before, they haven't done anything nasty to it to mess it up. Instead, they've just made it better. And that's a real, that's what you always want a manufacturer to do for you. So without further ado, let's see our little boxer under the hood, because that is the Subaru way. Yeah, you're on. This is all about the horsepower, which I know you care about. Now here we go with our 2.5 liter boxer engine. And this is classic Subaru beauty. Whoop, there we go. And it has the spider on top. I always like to call it that because that is your air intake system. And our 1, 2, 3, 4 flat, horizontally opposed. The pistons are fighting back and forth with each other, which also lends a sense of primary balance. But they still have a lot of vibration to them, these engines, just like anything else. But it's very well quelled and very well controlled in this car, and the idle is very, very smooth, which is always something I've appreciated with the Subaru I had back in 1982. Wow, that was a long time ago. I was just a kid. Here we have our air intake from the front of the car. It goes around here into this nice big air box right here. And then it flows right into the spider. And then one runner for each cylinder. And there you go, very similar. As I say, every time I have a Subaru, on the older boxer engines, you didn't have this huge superstructure up here, and the spare tire used to sit right there, which I always loved. Because I used to have a lot of flats when I was a young man. I drove at places that probably shouldn't have been driven. But here's a serpentine belt right here. And here's our alternator, our air conditioning compressor. Look down there and you'll see a water pump. Very, very straightforward car. And this is your oil filter right here. It couldn't be easier to get to. I think, is that the original oil filter? I have no idea, but it is a Subaru oil filter, which is, and you should stick with that. I'm telling you right now, when it comes to filters, stick with the OEM filters. And all the filter companies hate me, but that's fine. I think that's generally true. The OEM stuff is always going to be good, especially while the car is under warranty. If there's any problems whatsoever, they love it if they see you have in fact been using OEM equipment on it, because that just fortifies your warranty even more. Although they won't give you a hard time if you have a well-known aftermarket brand. They won't give you a hassle for that. But I'm telling you, it's just good practice. Now, what do we have here? Well, this is what you want to avoid, folks. This here is evidence that we had a creature, probably a mouse. This time of year, you got to watch that. That could have been, I have no idea where this vehicle was right before it got to me, and I don't think that happened at my domicile, but it could have. I could tell you a tale of something eating my wiring harness on my 4Runner and ending up eating part of the airbags and costing $7,000. Thank you, insurance company. But I won't tell you that story. So, but just be advised. Use some peppermint. Find a way to make sure that doesn't happen to you, because they will do damage. Our battery here is a substantial size for such a little car, and a fairly, well, 2.5 liters is not exactly small. And what are our numbers? Well, we have 182 horsepower at 5,800 RPM, and our, let's see, I'm going to pause for a second here to get my data. Hang on one second. Oh, yes. Where were we? Oh, yes. 182 horsepower is what is the actual figure. I don't know what I told you before. I don't remember. It was like a minute ago. And that is at a peak of 5,800 RPM. So it's a pretty high revving little engine. That's getting up there. And our torque or pounds of feet, 178 pounds of feet at 3,700 RPM, which is not exactly a low RPM peak, but it's certainly manageable, and the car feels a lot more sprightly than you might think. I think it's actually a real good fit. The car weighs about 3,300 pounds, roughly, and smoothly, that's what it weighs. And what's about our transmission? Well, we have the Lineartronic CVT transmission, which is pretty much the continuously variable transmission is the way Subaru's wanted to go. There is no manual option for this car, but it's a good CVT. It seems to work really well, and it has a manual mode with not 6 but 8 speeds. So that is, for your sporty driving, you can just pop it down into that manual mode and go to town. Enjoy yourself. Drive your RS like it's meant to be driven. But anyway, there we go. A good old boxer. Pretty reliable engines, these boxers, as long as you do what you should do with any power plant. And that's take care of it, change oil every 5,000 miles with the filter. And just the number one thing you can do to ensure the longevity of your car is don't drive like an idiot. Go easy on it when you can, because that way it'll last a much longer and keep you out of the shop, which is what you want. What lovely RS spec wheels, and how great they would look if they were actually clean. But hey, it's snowing, man. What can I do? A good size wheel here. What's our tire size? Our tire size is 225/40 R18. So these are 18 inches, and these are Yokohama Avids. That would be your 634 S34. Those are your S34s on there. And so far, they've proved to be real good tires. I initially was a little concerned about how they'd be on snow and ice, even though they are M+S rated. But they've been great. They've been real good. Traction has never been a problem with this car in the snow. It's just I wish it had a little more ground clearance right now. But hey, it still gets along very nicely. And as we head aft, we have our, this was what you basically are calling a 4-door hatchback, or some people will call it a 5-door. There we go. It's not powered, the rear gate, and doesn't need to be, so what the heck, it's fine. As you can see, our cargo area is fairly modest. They have decided to allocate more room for your rear passengers, which is good. You have your 60, 40 split seat. There's this thing here. That's your flappy, so that you can hide contraband underneath there. Kind of like the Millennium Falcon, if you want. And this is your thing for your item of your ski thing. I don't know what that's for. Actually, I do, but who cares? Look at here, aluminum. Now, we have an aluminum hood, I can guarantee you that, and that is an aluminum jack, and you know I'm a big fan of those. And then you have this big, this is a crank right here that you use to start the car. You put it in the front. Oh, no, that's not how that works. Actually, that's supposed to be up in there, so has this been used? Was there something going on? Do we have a spare tire underneath there? I believe we do. I'll double check that for you. But here's a cup holder. I don't know what it's doing. I guess you could sit back here. Why not? Ooh. Got your little cargo light. And like I say, pretty modest. But if you fold the seats forward, you got a whole lot more cargo room. So, for example, if you're just taking your significant other on a weekend getaway to go skiing, which seems kind of optimal right now, you can fold down those seats and put down huge trunks of kit. You can put all your ski gear. You can put your scuba gear if you have a dry suit that you. I mean, I'm all for that. I don't like it when it's that cold, though. That's going a little bit far for me. But anyway, you have a lot of utility in this thing. You can haul a lot of stuff if you need to. And that's just another reason why it's a real versatile little car. And so popular. I see a lot of them up here. And I think the more I drive this car, the more I'm going to appreciate it. And it's lovely that Subaru is very smart because they also make the Crosstrek, which is like a little bit more sporting lifestyle oriented type of vehicle, but it's basically got the Impreza roots, and the roots are sound. And the gods are good.
The gods are good.
It's like a trip down memory lane. Observe, if you will, the Subaru Impreza RS's mechanical engine cluster. Well, it's only partially mechanical, but the keys are on your left side, your tachometer, and your right side, your speedometer, with your incorporated fuel gauge on the right side and temperature gauge on the left side. And these are mechanical analog instruments, something that is rapidly vanishing. Of course, in the middle, you do have all kinds of computerized mayhem to help you with your, your modernization and all those things that you enjoy. But here we have a selection of all kinds of things you can dial up to inspect things. Like here's our PSI. It's not registering anything right now in our tires because we're not rolling. It's that type of system, I believe, that the wheels actually have to be turning to get. It's not an instantaneous generation of information. It's a less expensive to install system that relies primarily on your anti-lock componentry to tell you what your tires are doing. So anyhow, there's your radio, there's your time. Outside temperature is 38 degrees. 38, huh? It's freezing rain. Interesting. This is the mileage we've been getting. We've been getting over the 86 miles I've driven the car. We've been getting about 24.1 miles per gallon, which is pretty average for this type of vehicle and size of vehicle. But it is spared the complexities of which is almost the kind of thing that I'm coming around to it as being normal, but that is turbocharging. And this particular engine is not turbocharged. It is a normally aspirated 2.5 liter boxer. So you get normally aspirated gas mileage, which is 24.1. What else do we have? This is our miles per gallon since we're not moving at the moment. It's not giving us an instantaneous miles per gallon, but there's our range till we need to fuel up, which is 280 miles still. And like I said, I've already put 86 on it. So you're looking at well over 300, close to 350 miles of range, and that's very good. That's nothing to sneeze at. That's that's happening. Here's our time. You measure the time that you've been sitting there with the engine running. And then what's that bottom thing at? I don't know. I think it's this particular duration sorry, did I actually say key? To pushing the start button and turning the start button off at the end of your drive. That'll give you that information. If you find that necessary and useful, good for you. Now down here, oops, what did I just hit? I just hit that, sorry, hang on here. There we go. There is your cruise control. Your adaptive cruise control, and as you can see, we have our degree of following distance, and I'm just increasing the distance. And this is one of them situations where they got different buttons to take you up and down as far as your following distance. You make it closer with one button, you make it further away with another button. Okay, I don't know why they do it that way, but that's the way they chose to do it, so there you go. This is our self-steering, basically, is what I call it. It's also a type of lane keeping that will actually steer the car reasonably well, thanks to our eyesight 3-camera system. It seems to work reasonably well. Better than a lot, not as good as some. I mean, these things are all... It really varies pretty dramatically between manufacturers as to how well these systems work. And I'm basing that on driving on the exact same roads. Because to be honest with you, some of the roads up here, they'll throw you a curveball. They're a little tricky. And the systems primarily, almost all of them, base themselves on the cameras being able to see the lanes. And so when the lanes do crazy stuff like go from 3 lanes to 2 lanes or whatever, some of these systems get kind of confused. Others do better, but overall the adaptive cruise on this car works very well. And Subaru has kind of been ahead of the game as far as others in their class at getting this dialed in fairly well, but it's still, none of these systems, in my opinion, are where they need to be. So this is your lane mitigation. If you start to go off the road, it'll warn you. I can't remember what this does because it's been off since I got the car, because the previous driver feels the same way about it as I do. I don't like the steering taking over, and I just don't. I still, to this day, don't like to fight the car ever. And sometimes you have to make maneuvers that the car does not recognize as being a legitimate maneuver, and it will try to steer you back onto the highway when you have a real good reason for going slightly off the highway. So, hence I turn it off. And if you do turn it off on this car, then you get that yellow light right there that will be there forever. That will not change. So you just have to live with it and deal with it, and there you go. Here we have some of our audio controls. Here is our mute button for our telephone use. And this right here is our going back and forth from our selected channels, and this is our source. In other words, if we go to FM, Sirius, AM, whatever you like to go to, there's your source. Now this is very interesting here. This is your, oops, that's not what I thought it was. Where's my, oh, that's there, that's there. Okay, sorry, I was blinding myself. Back over on the right-hand side where all our cruise stuff here, this is our very important mode selector. Now, it's not a normal mode selector as you're used to. This is just 2 types of drive system. You have the ISI drive system, which is called the intelligent system, and then you have the SSI drive system, which is stupid. No, it's actually more of a sport mode, and it shows you a little graph on both of these, and what it's showing you is basically what it's doing to a curve, either the transmission, engine, whatever. But those 2 settings basically are designed to remap things. They're kind of the equivalent of when you put, this car doesn't have the ordinary mode situation where you have sport, comfort, intelligent, custom, you know, all those things. This car does not have that. It has these two intelligent drive systems from Subaru, and it's basically 2 different types of engine mapping. The intelligent side of things, this one here, oops, we're on that now. There we go. The intelligent side is a little bit more economically oriented compared with the sport side, and the sport side is a little bit more aggressive. So that's, like I say, both an engine response, transmission gearing. It's something that's, since these things are all controlled by electronics, and in the case of the transmission is a CVT unit, you can really change that quite a bit with these settings. You don't really notice it too awfully dramatic, but you can tell there's a difference between the two main programs. So that's that. If you go into manual mode, by the way, here's your paddles. There's your negative and your positive, which is shifting up and down. A total of, I believe, 6 speeds on there. Didn't I say that? Hang on, let's see. Did I write that down somewhere? Anyway, I believe you're a 6-speeder. Key features. Oh, sorry, this is what I'm reading right here. 12 voltage. In it you'll find. Well, anyway. I believe it's 6 speeds. It's not 8. I don't know why I had 8 on my previous car had 8. I believe this is 6 manual speeds. Man, wait a minute. We can do this. Let's go on down into manual and see what she does here. It's saying first. All right, let's go second, third. It won't go past second right now because I'm not moving. But anyway, I gotta say something about the manual selector while I'm here. It works well. It's not as good as a full manual transmission, of course, but as the manual setting on automatics go, it's pretty good. It's pretty crisp, and it does make the car fun to drive on a curvy back road. Kind of like a Sheryl Crow right here. Every day is a winding road. That's it's that kind of thing for people of you that like things explained through music. What else do we have? in this particular area, it's all pretty straightforward. Your lights are right here, which is normal. We have fog lamps. Thank you. Fog lamps are very, very good to have, especially where we live. We get a lot of fog up here. And then your turn signal, your windshield wiper stalk is exactly where you'd like it to be. And your rear is back here, and you can wash and do everything from right here for your rears. This right here is your adjustments for your interval windshield wipers, and then you have your full settings here. So very straightforward, very normal. That's beautiful. I'm mentioning the straightforward aspect because we're about to deviate away from that. When you get to this massive, woo, hello there, hello, reflections everywhere. Here, let's do this. That may make it a little better. There we go. This is, of course, a portrait format, and it's a very large screen. And they have moved a lot of the functions that were normally allocated to various switches and buttons into this system. For example, the climate control is right here. And this right here is your automatic engine start-stop, which really feels, compared to some other vehicles, a little cruder. It feels like just a big starter motor on it. And so when it fires up very quickly, it works fine, but it's just not as, let us say, refined as some of the other ones out there. If we want to go to climate on this particular system, you press this here, and there you go. And then it will allow you to do a few things. Primarily, you set your zones. You have your left and right zones. You can recirculate. You can turn on and off, and it's temporary. It's not, I prefer, everybody else seems to be sticking with a nice solid system of climate control, HVAC, that is primarily button and switch based. And you just reach right down here and it's there, and this you have to go into some sub menus, which is, I've never liked that. And it's true for every other aspect of the car. If you hit the car logo here, you go into various vehicle control, driving assistance, and additional settings. So for example, the auto vehicle hold is not turned on right now. Steering responsive headlights are turned on. The auto stop. You know, it's an interesting thing. I turned that off and yet it was still on earlier. I don't know if you have to have a coordination between this and this. I don't know. See, if I turn it off there, it's not turned off here. But what happens if I decide to, oh, it did do it by, okay, good. It didn't do that before. That's interesting. But if I turn it off here, and it turns it off there. So you do have this instant access. It's one of the few things that does have instant access. But on our driving assistant front, we have pre-collision braking, forward collision warning, lane departure is off. Oh, see, if I turn it on, all functions, for example, look, that light is gone. But now we're going to turn it back off because we don't like it, so bye. Rear vehicle detection, that works really well. I was just in the parking lot where it demonstrated its value. We do still have a couple of nice things. We do have a volume and on-off button, or mute, as it is now called, and a tuning button, so you do have a manual tuning aspect to it. But again, a lot of the stuff that you normally associate with being readily available on a switch is not there now. There are some exceptions that are interesting. For example, your full frontal, woo, can you hear that? Your full frontal defroster and your rear defroster are right there. So that's excellent. And when you hit that rear defroster, it also, I believe, does the side mirrors, and very quickly too. So as in typical Subaru fashion, this is a very good all-weather vehicle, and if you live in a snowy climate, this car is very well equipped for that. Not only with its standard symmetrical all-wheel drive, but just little touches like that are all part of the whole thing. Now, is that an additional package on this car, on this RS version? No, I don't think, I think it's actually, oh, you know what else we have on there? I just noticed, a sound insulating windshield. I've been mentioning that. That's coming more and more common on cars. And it actually adds a different layer, another layer, I believe, to the actual windshield construction to help keep the car quiet. Oh, here we go. I was lying like a dog. It's an 8-speed manual, 8-speed, not 6. I don't know why. I thought it had 8 speeds. Well, shame on me for saying otherwise. I apologize profusely. And with that, I will banish myself down to the center console area. One thing you don't see very often anymore, this has a wonderful USB-A, USB-C, but it also still has an auxiliary jack right there. So if you have an older, let's say you might have an iPod Nano or something that you still have because it still works, and you like it because you just put songs on it and listen to songs with it, well, you could actually plug that in using that system if you don't want to use Bluetooth and pull the battery down on that wee little music player. So that's great that that's still around. Few cars that I've tested recently still have those, but every once in a while they do. And it's always a good sign because it's just another way to interface with your car if you have some kind of external device. Now then, our shifter is completely conventional and mechanical. You go straight back for drive, neutral is here, R is here, and then you have the manual setting, as I showed earlier, like so. So, extremely familiar to you and extremely functional. It's not got all this electronic stuff in here. The transmission itself is governed by electronics, but the particular shift linkage is mechanical, which, in my opinion, in my experience, can be a lot more reliable over a long term than a lot of these electronic, where you touch it and you can just tell it's just electronic. It's like just turning a switch. And anyway, I have mixed feelings about the newer ones, but this one, good, tried and true. Here we have our seat heaters at your convenience right here. That's something that's external that you don't have to go through that menu to get to, which is great. You got your 12 volter right here if you want to plug in some 12 volt power. Cup holders, and in here, here we have a very deep and commodious little console to put all kinds of stuff in it. Now, the seats are made of a very interesting fabric. I don't know what they officially call it at Subaru, but it is a type of. I've felt this fabric before in a lot of different kinds of vehicles. Like I've mentioned, or will continue to mention, Toyota owns a third of Subaru. So every once in a while you see things that I think are coming from the same basic source as far as parts. And I feel like on some of the Toyota products, they have a very similar type of textile. And this is really nice in this middle part here, up in here where your body actually resides, is very, very durable feeling, and these seats are very comfortable. They have good side bolsters for lateral support and everything else. So it's a real nice choice, I think, and it seems durable, and I would imagine it's pretty resistant to water and stuff like that. It just feels that way anyway. And you got all this fancy bicolor stitching involved with it, so a little bit of craftsmanship involved with that, and that's nice. And what do we have over here? Here's our glove box, and it's a big one. You could easily get some smaller laptops and definitely tablets inside that. Plenty of room there for that. And what else do we have above? Well, we have a manual shade, but an automatic, as in electronic sunroof for your pleasure. You got to have sunroof. I mean, come on. You want to let that sun in. I'm a big proponent of that. But here's some of your SOS, and your more and more cars are getting these things. These are onboard systems that often after a few years you have to pay a subscription price, but you can get instantaneous response for roadside help or all kinds of things through those systems. Everybody has a name for theirs. I can't remember what Subaru calls theirs, but they're becoming more and more common. Pretty much every manufacturer offers this now, and it's pretty much standard equipment. Like I said, with a standard subscription time that is free for a couple of years, and then you have to start paying for it if you want to maintain it. Is it worth having? Well, interesting question. I mean, you usually have your cell phone with you, or most people do. I don't, but if you have your cell phone with you, this is kind of redundant because they both have to have, if you don't have a signal on your cell phone, you ain't going to get a signal off of this either, more than likely. So is it worth paying extra for down the road? I'd say try it. If you got the car, try it while you have a free trial on this thing and see if you like it, see if it's useful to you. But like I said, it's becoming very, very common on just about everything. Here's our QI charger, by the way, which works real well. It's a nice big one, too. If you have one of the larger phones, it'll fit on there without any problem. And it's able to wirelessly charge my phone through the case without any issues whatsoever. It does a good job. So I think we're done up here. Our headroom is very, very good. Overall room up here is good. There is a lot of hard plastic, but it doesn't give the car a feeling of being a big, cheap plastic car. There is a lot of hard plastic, but there's a lot of hard plastic on most vehicles these days. You have to get up into the real expensive stuff before that starts to be replaced with leather and wood and all that kind of falderall. So that's up to you. Now let's take a look out back and see. Ooh, as you can see, we have snow here. The white snow, white car, everything's white. Here we have almost 90 degrees. This door opens, which is great. And here we go. Window goes all the way down 100%. Thank you for that. I really like it when that happens. We have a central dome light. We don't have map lights, which is a bummer because I just like them. Here's this thing I've been talking about on a lot of cars. You have a pouch here that you could probably slide in your a magazine, a clipboard, or your tablet device right in that deal. But over here on the driver's side of the car, there is nothing. I don't know why that is, except for the fact that they're worried about your leg room. That's the theory I've come up with. Why so many cars don't have it on the driver's side is they feel like it would impugn the leg room of the person sitting back here. Now, seeing as how this car is very low to the ground and yet has four-wheel drive, which means a drive shaft going to the rear drivetrain, you would expect, and there it is, a pretty substantial drive shaft tunnel in this car. So what that does is that means if you put three people back here, the middle one must splay. It's the only way to put your feet down. You're going to have to splay. And so therefore, not recommended for long trips with three people, although you can certainly do it. There's nothing stopping you. But just so you know, there is a pretty substantial drive shaft tunnel. Lower back support on the seat is really good. It's like they've bolstered the lumbar area nicely. What do we have here? Do we have an armrest that comes down? We sure do. And it's at a jaunty angle. It's a good height. I like it. Got your cup holders here. And so you also have your 60-40 split to the cargo area. And this really, you can tell so much of this is biased towards giving your rear passengers some room. It makes the cargo area seem very small in comparison to a lot of vehicles in this class. But it does all right. And I mean, you can always mix and match depending on what your particular situation is. Like you could do a lot with one person sitting back in the back seat, this side being folded down and increasing your cargo room. So you have a fair amount of cargo room that way. But otherwise, room is good. Headroom is okay, is good. It's not fantastic, but it's definitely good. And this driver's seat is fairly far back right now. So your leg room and your foot room are good. It's especially for the size of the car, and it is a compact. So Subaru's, like I said, done a real nice job of making sure that the number one priority space-wise is for your rear passengers as opposed to cargo space. Okay then. This is our Impreza RS interior. Come on, Eileen. I'm still waiting for some more Dixie Midnight Runners albums to come out. That's funny. Come on, Eileen. So, one of the things, the thing I like most about the Impreza, and I've always liked about the Impreza, and to a less extent the Crosstrek Subaru, is it's just nice driver. It's just a very, very nice car to drive in terms of handling, balance. This is a real nice car for all the things that you like if you like to drive. It really is. It's just the suspension. This is an area that Subaru has done such a great job with all their vehicles. Is suspension compliance is really, really good. And you have all kinds of things. Let's put our cruise on here. There we go, and there we go. Now we got our adaptive cruise on. Now this little button here, similar to in the location of where the cruise stuff is on, like, oh, I don't know, say a RAV4 hybrid. Press this button right here and you activate the self-steering. And as you can see, it actually is very smooth about what it does. It's going through all the motions right now because there's all this confusing stuff for the eyesight. This is the international symbol between Subaru people. If you ever see them do this, it means they're saying to another Subaru owner, eyesight 2. We believe in the power of eyesight. But it works fairly well. One of the things I really like about their self-steering is that it's very subtle by comparison to other stuff that's on the road. And you can do that, and then you can turn it off just like that, which is the way it should be, like super, super, super easy to do. Now what's this? These buttons down here, these S and I's, well, these are your SI drive system, which is more of a sport type of thing. And then you have your I side, which is introspective, you see. That's what that means. I don't know what the difference is between the two, to tell you the truth, right off the bat. But it is in tuning. It involves tuning. And so you're tuning it a little bit differently, depending on whether you're in S or I mode. Now, as far as driving modes go, there are no other driving modes, and there's no snow mode or anything like that, at least that I've found. That doesn't mean it doesn't have it. It just means I haven't found it. But I don't think it does, actually. I think that those are your choices, those two algorithms on how but you know, you come to a stage where you start to realize something with all these different drive modes a lot of these cars have. There's not a hell of a lot of difference between mode to mode. The most important thing is to have a basic tuning to the car that works all the time. I mean, you don't want to, it's kind of, I mean, it makes sense to have, for example, in snow. If you have a snow setting, that's great because it usually retards things a little bit so that the response is not as dramatic, which is good because it's slower, and that's better for ice and snow and stuff like that to keep you out of trouble. And you want to keep yourself out of trouble. You really do. But as long as the car is well tuned to begin with, you really don't need all those modes, in my opinion. You're just commoding yourself. If you have a, I mean, there's some difference to some of them, but for the most part, you're not going to dramatically alter things. Now, the one good thing, if a car has a custom driving mode that you can tweak and use different elements, the steering response and suspension response. It doesn't have all that on this car, and I think a lot of that is primarily due to the fact that it's kind of an economy car. I mean, it's basically designed to be affordable, and so it doesn't have a lot of the frills and frippery that some of the other guys have, and some of the other Subarus have. To be honest, to be deadly honest, yeah, I don't see anything like that there. I still am not. I'll never be comfortable with this format, I don't think, because every vehicle that I've driven that has a portrait format to their center screen punts a lot of the operations of the car to that screen. And this one, for example, you have to go through, you have to punch in different menus. Right now, I like the idea if I just want to pop up the temperature, and what they've done here is nice because it's just right here. And that's a button, so you don't have to go into the main menu. But if you want to like turn the automatic mode on and off, you have to go into a sub-menu. And most cars, you know, have a separate section. And I always talk about it's one of the few things that seems to be standardized on all these different vehicles is the fact that your heating, ventilation, air conditioning, your HVAC is, and we're going to go up a hill now. All 182 horsepower are in play. And like I say, this thing scoots along quite nicely for such a little engine. The big thing I'm going to be looking for is fuel economy. Right now it's saying I'm getting 24.6, which is very average and not great for a car this small. But this is the worst time of year for fuel economy. It's really cold. And in the wintertime, that's when you're going to get your worst gas mileage. Summertime, you're going to get your best gas mileage. And that's all environmentally tied in to the operation of the car. I was remember somebody was saying that hybrids don't work as well or electrics don't work as well in hot weather. That's completely not true in my experience. Hybrids in particular seem to do much better in hotter weather. And that's the way that is. Whee! Just excellent suspension compliance on this car. It never ceases to amaze me how good these Subarus have gotten. You also got this little car here when I put the brakes on. Can you see that up there? Woo! I love that, but they don't take it far enough. Now, if you're going to have the little car, which is even the same color as this car, and you touch the brakes go on through adaptive cruise control, and the brake lights come on down here. But if you have your turn signal on, it don't do nothing. It don't blink. See, that's almost fixed. I don't know how much more expensive that would be to have it be able to do that, but if you're gonna go, man. That's what we always say. But for the most part, you have a lot of cars to choose from. And one of the reasons, at least in my neck of the woods, there's another Subaru. Subarus have gotten so popular, primarily because they do everything people need it to do, and they've been reliable cars, especially for the first 5 years. They've been pretty damn reliable cars. They're not the world's most fuel efficient, but they're not bad in that regard. They've not had much luck with hybrid technology. They now have one electric offering, which is the same as the Toyota BZ4X, same car basically. So you have those to choose from if you want. But the main thing that Subaru does really well right now is your conventional gasoline-powered internal combustion engine cars. And you look at the price you pay and what you get, and they're very attractive. And they drive great. I mean, that's the thing I love the most about this Impreza is it's fun to drive. It feels comfortable to me driving it. It has such a the steering is excellent as far as the feedback goes. The suspension is, I still say, top of the range when it comes to compacts. Nobody's building a better suspension. Even the BMWs and Mercedes of the world really aren't building a more compliant, comfortable suspension than Subaru is right now. Well, now here's the thing I can't answer to myself is, why is it that this vehicle seems to have less ground clearance than most Subarus, and yet it does still have some? It just didn't seem like it when I was driving it over, let us say, unimproved surfaces. But anyway, here is our wonderful Subaru rear suspension. Now, one of the reasons these cars are known for their sturdiness is because they have a very solidly engineered suspension system. Now, we're looking at the rear suspension, of course, because that's where all the interesting stuff is. And as you can see, it's kind of a multi-link type of thing here, with your upper link right there and your lower link right there. And then we have our shock or coil over shock array right here. And what's this thing do here? That's another part of the linkage system, I think. But as you can see, here is our drive shaft right there to our rear drivetrain, and there is our differential. So Subaru is pretty much has a tried and true system that they have been steadily polishing and refining, and what they've got now is a system. Oh, here's another link here, by the way. This is your front link, your leading link right there. What they've got now is a really, really good riding car, especially over roads that are not, let us say, the most perfect things in the world for driving your car down. They've really gotten things dialed in beautifully, especially on this car. And if I remember, the Crosstrek was very similar in terms of its ride quality. It was really, really good for a compact, especially because compacts usually, they have a couple of things going against them. For one thing, they're a small, light car, so you can't get some of that inherent mass to help make the car ride smoother over rough surfaces. It bounces around a little more, in other words. But they've managed to deal with that really, really well. And it also has the disadvantage in the compact class of usually being less expensive. They spend less money on it. So they have to, watch the cost of all the components they use. But Subaru's done a real good job with the money they spend on these cars. And as a result, you as the owner-driver get to enjoy a real nice ride and a very good handling chassis. And it's also very, very sturdy. Like I say, if you look at the side, the massive size of this subframe. The subframe is, of course, bolted to the unibody. Like right here, as you can see, there's a bushing in there. And that's where it's isolated to a certain extent from the unibody to help absorb some of the roughness of the road. But overall, you have a real stable, stout platform right here to keep everything in line and at the same time deliver that good ride that I like so much. And there's a fair amount of protection here for most of your componentry. Not near as well. If you look here, the ground clearance right up in here is not great. It's much lower to the ground than most Subarus, especially if you start to get into the Outback or the Wilderness trim lines of Subarus. They got a whole lot more ground, probably twice as much ground clearance as this almost. So this would not be my first choice if you're going to be doing a lot of driving where the road is like you see here, unimproved. But it still does well, and if you're in a situation where your primary use of all-wheel drive will come just when it snows outside, this car will do very, very well. You do have some polymer protection right here for your fuel tank, and all this flatness here that I think I've actually tested on a rock that I drove over, which it may have been bumped. I cannot confirm or deny that happened. But anyway, a very, very classic Subaru suspension. Very simple in design, but very well executed. And years of engineering have gone into it to make it one of the most overall best balanced suspension you'll get on a smaller car. And that's high praise for anything, basically. Well, here we are in 2024 with our brand new Subaru Impreza RS. A lot of nice changes to the Impreza this year, including a little bit stiffer chassis. And the RS package is a great one because the standard Impreza comes with just a 2-liter engine. But this 2.5 liters got a little bit more power, which makes it that much more fun to drive. And naturally it has your standard Symmetrical all-wheel drive system. And quite a bit of room for such a compact car, as you probably already know if you're a fan of the brand. This particular one, by the way, in terms of pricing, let's see what we have here. Our standard RS price is $27,885, and with the option package of $2,070 plus destination delivery, we come to $31,045. So what if you're a previous owner of the Impreza? Has it improved that much over last year's model? I think there's a lot of very, very good improvements to it, and overall, like with everything else, when you have a long-standing brand like the Impreza, they just make it better and better with each passing year. So this is a beautiful car, for the money especially. And speaking of beautiful, it's been a beautiful time being with you, and we will join you next time.
Do whatever the tube tells you. You dress like the tube, you eat like the tube, you raise your children like the tube, you even think like the tube. This is mass madness, you maniacs. In God's name, you people are the real thing. We are the illusion.